Well done. Superb job. That's the stuff. You can't go wrong with that. Gun rhymes with fun for a reason, stranger.
They actually pulled it off. It's something that we've said about Resident Evil remakes like 4 times now. The Resident Evil 4 remake is no exception. It's fantastic, as it should be when a company has 18 years worth of hindsight and player feedback. Yet it somehow still surprises me when a greedy company such as Capcom gets something so right. It's not a perfect game by any means, but for every stumble, there's a save. Did Resident Evil 4 need to be remade? No. Could those resources have been better placed on developing a spiritual successor to it? Well yeah, that's what I thought Resident Evil Village was supposed to be, but stabbing women in the neck has never looked or felt so good. And we're already here now, so let's remove the Stone of Shame and attach the Stone of Triumph. The original Resident Evil 4, released in 2005, was a game changer. It's hailed as both one of the greatest games ever made, and also the beginning of the end for the Resident Evil series, right up until Resident Evil 7 won back the community's goodwill. But was it, as some claimed, a perfect video game? God no. If you think so, you're probably only remembering the village section. It was all downhill from there. Resident Evil 4 is the golden child of the franchise somehow, but here's my hot take. Everything that Resident Evil 4 did, Resident Evil 5 did better. You say 5 isn't a good Resident Evil game because it's not scary? The only scary things in 4 were the first regenerator encounter and the bag. Resident Evil 5 jumped the shark and had Chris Redfield literally punching a boulder to move it? I'm sorry, is this not silly?
What's going on?
Is this not silly? How about this helicopter stealthily pushing over this water tower? What about Oven Man? The Resident Evil 4 remake is better than the original. Not in every way, but in most major aspects. Some things have been expanded and some things have been cut, thank God. Some things have been improved, but others made worse. The story has both been expanded and refocused, for better or worse. There's a lot going on with this remake, but it certainly is faithful to the original. Better graphics, better sound design, these are the things we expect from remakes. But what this remake does so well is that it plays with fans' expectations. It can often be a very familiar experience, right up until BAM! They hit you with a surprise. The moment I realise this game is not to be trusted is right after the villagers finish hazing you in the opening. In the original, the village square is a brutal arena that puts you to the test early on. After that, you assault the local farm, clearing them out room by room at a leisurely pace. In the remake, I moved on to murder the people at the farm, but after suplexing a defenseless old man, the game launched another all-out assault on me, plus a brand new enemy type that I was not ready for. It's those moments that stand out, the game subverting a Resident Evil veteran's expectations in ways that would still seem normal for new players. I'm so familiar with almost everything in the original that it's quite novel to see things change ever so slightly. Most of the characters have been altered to some degree. They are still true to the original game, but rewritten to fit in this somewhat more believable remake universe. Except for Krauser. He's still a walking, talking cliché. The biggest problem I have with the characters is that aside from Leon and Ashley, we don't get enough time with the rest of the cast. You hardly ever even speak to Hunnigan, which is so weird considering that she's meant to be your only support for the mission. In the original, even Sadler took the time to video call Leon every now and then.
Since you're here, why don't I introduce you to it? It should keep you busy.
Can't remember the name, huh? A senior moment, perhaps.
Oh.
Leon at no point during his mission tells Hunnigan that the locals are all hostile, and she goes ahead and sends Mike to foreign soil to murk them all anyway. So the focus in this remake is Leon and Ashley, and in that regard, they've done an incredible job. The Leon from 2005's Resident Evil 4 was just a highly capable himbo. He's a pretty boy, a deadly fighter, but also says some of the most hilariously dumb things you'll ever hear.
I'm sure you boys didn't just tag along so we could sing Kumbaya together at some Boy Scout bonfire. Then again, maybe you did.
I've been expecting you, my brethrens.
No thanks, bro.
If I were you, I'd get off this island too.
She really pushed it.
These qualities have made him into one of the most popular Resident Evil characters of all time. So how the hell do you follow that up in the remake? This Leon is the same Leon from the Resident Evil 2 remake. but he's grown since then. He's less naive, more confident, and has way more agency than he did in Resident Evil 2. But true to his character, all these qualities fly out the window as soon as he sees an opportunity to put an end to the Redford bloodline. He still throws out cheesy one-liners.
Sorry, must have slipped.
Still does silly acrobatics for no reason. And is still determined to complete his mission, no matter how many times my PC decides to crash. While the original Resident Evil 4 Leon seemed pretty unaffected by the Raccoon City incident, this Leon is clearly still affected by it. And it's so difficult to explain how I know that. Maybe it's because it's the same voice and face of the Resident Evil 2 remake, and the subtle change in his personality carries more weight with it. All I know is that I love this version of him. Also, whenever a big bad guy starts monologuing, he just starts shooting them. And that was so funny to me every single time it happened. However, Ashley is the real standout in this game. Whereas Leon was simply updated to be more human, it feels like they completely rewrote Ashley from scratch. And thank God they did. Instead of being nothing but a helpless screaming damsel in distress, she's a fleshed out, well-written character now. And I even started to miss her when she wasn't following Leon around. Even when she's freaking the hell out, it's too believable to be annoying. She requires a lot less babysitting. She couldn't even descend ladders before. Now look at her. She's capable, while still being as functionally useless as before. Her interactions with Leon show that she's actually worth the effort in saving her. That's the impact of good writing. But as for the supporting cast, Luis is no longer a sexual predator, despite looking a lot more like one. Probably the only one whose part has been expanded on. He hangs around a little longer this time, although his sections dial up the corniness to extreme levels. All the effort that went into making Ada into a believable and likable human being in her previous appearance has been completely left by the wayside. Salazar is boring, Sadler is boring, but like I said, for every stumble, there's a save. The overall story is more cohesive, and the backstory of Las Plagas and the Los Iluminados was fascinating to absorb over the course of the game. There are lots of extra details that flesh out the world. I could almost believe that this hellhole ruled by a Napoleon caricature is meant to be Spain, not France. And even though it's pretty much the same story as before, there were still some points where I thought, Jesus Christ, what the hell is going to happen next? So the parts where the story slightly deviated from the original were the parts that I liked the most, compared to the parts that were straight up remade. What isn't a slight deviation though, is the level design. The remake completely changes the relatively linear experience of the original village, castle, and island sections into 3 large hubs. The looping level design makes everything feel connected in a logical, grounded way. The castle section benefits the most from this, because the original was a whole string of nonsensical rooms and ridiculous puzzles crammed one after the other. Now, it's a web of nonsensical rooms and ridiculous puzzles looping in and around each other, which kind of gives the illusion that it's a real place. The island, though, never cared for it. It's the lowest point in the original, and I honestly wouldn't have blamed them if they removed that whole section. All things considered, they've done a good job with it. At least Oven Man makes his triumphant return. As for the gameplay, it's a mixed bag. People out here trying to tell you that the QuickTime events are pretty much gone. The button prompts have just been relocated down here. You can now parry almost any kind of attack, including projectiles with your knife. Sound overpowered? The knife has a durability meter now. Parries, stealth kills, and stabbing your way out of QuickTime events damages the blade and needs to be repaired once it breaks. I'm not quite sold on this mechanic. I mean, blocking chainsaws is cool and all, but using a knife to get an enemy off you in the other remakes had a level of strategy to it. In this remake, I don't really think there's a time when you shouldn't use the knife to escape from a sticky situation. You're able to repair your knife pretty frequently, so the mechanic doesn't really engage you in the short or long term. But rejoice, my children. It feels like we're only one remake away from being back to Resident Evil 6's counters and stamina bars, and I'm all here for it. As for the shooting mechanics, they've been tweaked too. Slaughtering Spaniards is way more visceral, that's for sure. Blasting enemies into little chunks is a sight to behold. But what's actually new? You can move and shoot now, but doing so makes it harder to hit enemies, and you move at a snail's pace anyway. Critical hits are more frequent if you stand still and allow the crosshair to tighten, meaning you're actually rewarded for not moving and shooting. Laser sights are now an upgrade that need to be bought, and only apply to a select few weapons. Now this one I'm not happy about. The laser sight in the original was not just a game mechanic, but also part of the game's personality. If you're a Red 9 enthusiast like me, prepare to have your world rocked when you realize that your favorite handgun is not compatible with a laser sight. but at least they've done the merchant justice. A lot of his classic lines are back.
Got a selection of good things on sale, stranger. Ooh, what you buying? Ah, I'll buy it at a high price. Come back anytime.
And what a stand-up guy. He has a monopoly on all of Leon's equipment purchases and repairs, yet still offers them at reasonable prices. The merchant still exists in that quantum superposition between being a real character and being an invisible non-canon apparition. Leon acknowledges him the first time he sees him, and I was expecting Ashley to react to seeing him too, but nothing. So I guess he is just a mental construct Leon has invented to cope with going to Spain at the wrong time of year. But then I picked up a treasure and Ashley said,
"You gonna sell that thing you got?"
So does he, or does he not, actually exist? The shooting range also returns, which gave me the biggest, dumbest grin I think I've ever had playing a video game. Because your companion will chill out with you, cheer you on, and the two of you can have the time of your lives while the parasites slowly course through your veins. The merchant is just so video gamey, giving you dumb side missions, popping up out of nowhere.
Breaks over, I suppose.
This man has no business hanging out at the bottom of an oubliette, yet here he is, just like old times. There are a lot of other little gameplay things that they've kept, changed or tinkered with, and not all of them are things I agree with. I'll hit you with the most controversial one first. I don't like the attaché case. Never have. It completely breaks the flow of combat when I have to pause gameplay to eat a whole ass fish when I'm critically wounded. Let me eat my eggs in real time again, as God intended. I like that they've introduced storage cases, but I don't like that I can send weapons into storage wherever I am. Placing different types of gems into slots and treasure pieces for different bonuses? Love it. The side missions the merchant hands out? Absolutely no imagination, except for maybe one of them. The Mercenaries mode has returned, but this might be the weakest offering yet. Don't get me wrong, it is a really fun way to put the combat mechanics to the test, and playing as characters other than Leon is a fun novelty, but it's way too easy. I'm a 30-year-old sloth of a man, but I S-ranked every map on my first attempt. I even died in my first match, but still achieved an S-rank. What happened to the risk-reward of past iterations, where you can lose everything if you died before extraction? Pathetic. Resident Evil 5 and 6 set the gold standard for Mercenaries in my opinion, and with no co-op and just a handful of maps, there's nothing really to keep me playing. But I suppose that's enough whinging from me.
And that's the game.
The Resident Evil 4 remake is a fantastic game, even better than the original by today's standards, but it's not a game changer. Everything the remake does well has been done better by other games. And ironically, most of those games were probably inspired by Resident Evil 4 back in 2005. Capcom has no self-control. The whole franchise had a back to its roots reset in 2017, but a mere 6 years later, we are already knee-deep in the action-oriented Resident Evil releases again, and I cannot wait to see how far they'll take it this time. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I really appreciate it. See you next time.